Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I've got a couple of stories that hit hard. Moments about trust, friendship, and love, the kind that make you think. Sit back, relax, and let yourself get drawn in. If you enjoy the vibe, drop a like, hit subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's get into it. First story: the ring he never took off. Part 1.
I met Daniel on an ordinary Wednesday, the kind of day that should have slipped through the cracks of memory. But he had this way of making the most mundane moment feel cinematic. He was confident without being arrogant, attentive without smothering. Within months, we were inseparable. By the time he proposed, I felt certain this was the man I'd grow old with. There was only one small detail that always stood out to me: the ring on his right hand. It wasn't a flashy piece of jewelry, just a thin silver band, slightly scratched, as if it had been worn for years. When I once asked him about it, he smiled in a way that was half tender, half evasive. "Just something I've had forever," he said. I wanted to press, but the warmth in his eyes was enough to silence the question. Life with him was almost too perfect. He texted me good morning before I even opened my eyes. He remembered little things like how I hated coriander or how I always checked the locks twice before bed. He fit into my world seamlessly, and my friends envied me for finding the rare good one. Yet sometimes his phone would light up with messages he ignored. Once I noticed a name I didn't recognize: Catherine. He brushed it off, saying she was a colleague. Still, something in my stomach tightened. I told myself not to become that paranoid girlfriend who looks for problems where there are none. Then came the night everything began to shift. We were out with friends, celebrating a birthday at a dimly lit bar. Daniel had his arm around me, laughing, when a woman walked in. She was striking, not in an obvious, glamorous way, but in the kind of quiet beauty that drew the air out of the room. And then I saw it. The way Daniel froze for just a fraction of a second, his hand tightening unconsciously around the ring on his finger. He recovered quickly, kissed my temple, and carried on as if nothing had happened. But my heart was already pounding, because in that brief, unguarded look, I realized something. The story of that silver ring was far from simple. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't the only one living inside his love story.
Part 2.
That night, I couldn't sleep. Daniel was beside me, his breathing steady, one arm draped across my waist as if to anchor me there. But my mind replayed the way his body tensed at the sight of that woman. It wasn't just a surprise. It was recognition, and something deeper, like guilt. The next morning, I watched him as he brewed his coffee. The silver ring caught the sunlight, almost mocking me with its secrecy. I finally asked, "Daniel, who is that woman at the bar?" He didn't even look up. "Just someone I used to know," he said casually, stirring sugar into his cup. But his hand trembled, just slightly. From then on, cracks began to appear in the picture-perfect life we had built. He came home later than usual, claiming deadlines at work. His phone, once left casually on the counter, was now always face down, locked with a new code. When I kissed him, he kissed me back, but there was a hesitation, like his heart was elsewhere. One afternoon, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. My pulse quickened when I saw the name again: Catherine. Against every promise I'd made to myself about trust, I opened the message. "We need to talk. You can't keep living two lives forever. She deserves to know." My hands went cold. The phone nearly slipped through my fingers. The words blurred, but their meaning was clear. I wasn't crazy. There was a truth buried under his careful smiles and gentle touches, and it was about to surface. When he came out of the shower, towel around his waist, I confronted him. "Who is Catherine?" My voice shook, but I held his gaze. For a long moment, he just stood there, water dripping onto the floor. Then he whispered, almost too softly to hear, She's someone I should have told you about a long time ago." The silence after that felt unbearable. My chest tightened as if my body already knew the answer before he could give it words. The silver ring on his finger glinted in the light, a cruel reminder that the man I loved was carrying a past, or maybe even a present, I had never been allowed to touch. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a story about a forgotten ex or a minor mistake. This was the beginning of the betrayal that would break me.
Part 3.
Daniel didn't answer me right away. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. I had never seen him look so small, so cornered. Finally, he lifted his gaze, and in his eyes I saw the kind of truth that doesn't just hurt, it scars. "Emma," he said quietly, "I was married." The words felt like glass in my ears. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "Was?" I demanded. "What do you mean, was?" He swallowed hard. "Catherine, she's my wife. We've been separated, but never divorced. I should have told you, I know. I didn't mean for this to go so far, but then I met you, and you were everything. You were different." I stood there frozen. Every memory of us, the proposal, the promises, the mornings tangled in sheets, crumbling in real time. Different. My voice cracked. "You proposed to me while you still had a wife?" His silence was the answer. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him hurt even half as much as I did. Instead, I stared at that damned silver ring. "Is that hers?" I asked. He looked down at it, twisting it nervously on his finger. "Yes," he admitted. "I kept it because I couldn't let go." The betrayal wasn't just that he had lied. It was that he had built a life with me on top of a life he never dismantled. I wasn't his fresh start. I was his escape, his distraction, while Catherine remained the shadow he couldn't step out of. I left that night with nothing but a suitcase and the engagement ring he had given me. I placed it on the kitchen counter, right beside the silver band he never took off, and walked away. Weeks later, Catherine reached out. Not with anger, not even with jealousy, but with a kind of weary solidarity. She had been living in the same betrayal for years. The ring, she told me, had once symbolized forever. Now, it was nothing but a reminder of promises Daniel never knew how to keep. And though time has dulled the sharpness of the pain, one truth remains. Betrayal doesn't just shatter trust. It rewrites every memory, poisons every tender moment, until even love itself feels like a lie.
Second story. The Friend Who Stayed. Part 1.
Mark had been my best friend since middle school, the kind of friend you'd call at 3 a.m. and know he'd actually show up. We'd been through everything together, failed exams, breakups, stupid fights with our parents. And through it all, one constant tied us together, my crush on Emily. Emily wasn't just any girl. She was the kind of person who made a room feel brighter the moment she walked in. I'd liked her for years but never confessed, telling myself I was waiting for the right time. Mark knew. Of course he knew. I told him everything, which is why, the night I saw them together, my stomach dropped. It was late, I was cutting through the park on my way home, when I spotted them sitting on a bench beneath the streetlight. Emily was laughing at something Mark had said, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They looked close. Closer than friends. And when she leaned her head against his shoulder, I felt the ground tilt under me. I didn't confront them then. I couldn't. Instead, I walked home with a storm inside me. Betrayal doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers, and that night it whispered every time I replayed the way she touched him. The next day, I acted normal. Mark and I hung out, played video games, grabbed burgers, like always. But I couldn't stop seeing that moment in the park. Every time he smiled, I wondered if it was the same smile he gave her. Every time he texted, I imagined her name lighting up his screen. Finally, I snapped. "How long have you been seeing her?" I blurted out, halfway through our meal. His fork froze mid-air. What are you talking about? You and Emily, I said, my voice rising. Don't play dumb. I saw you two last night. Don't tell me it was nothing. For a second, something unreadable flashed in his eyes, not guilt exactly, but something heavier. He put his fork down and leaned forward. Jason, he said slowly, there are things you don't know, and before you hate me for good, you need to hear the whole story. The way Mark looked at me that night made my pulse spike. He didn't deny it, didn't laugh it off the way he usually would when I accused him of something ridiculous. Instead, he just said, there are things you don't know, and suddenly the air between us felt heavy. I wanted him to spill it all right there, in that greasy diner booth with ketchup stains on the table, but he just shook his head. Not here. Not like this. That answer only made it worse. I barely slept, replaying every memory through a different lens. The way he used to tease me about never making a move on Emily, the way he sometimes changed the subject when I mentioned her, even the way he disappeared for hours without explanation. Every little moment was now a breadcrumb leading to betrayal. The next few days were torture. Mark didn't bring it up again, and pride kept me from asking, but I couldn't stop myself from watching him, the way his phone lit up, the way he slipped outside to take certain calls. Once, I caught a glimpse of a text on his screen before he locked it. The message preview was short but sharp. We can't keep this secret forever. I felt sick. My best friend. The girl I'd loved quietly for years, together, behind my back. It was the cliché I never thought would happen to me, and yet it was unfolding right in front of my face. Finally, I cornered him after basketball practice. The gym was empty, the sound of our sneakers echoing as I blocked his way to the locker room. I'm done waiting, Mark. Tell me the truth. You owe me that much. He stared at me, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. For a moment, I thought he was going to lie. But instead, he said something that made my blood run cold. It's not what you think, he said quietly, but if I tell you everything, you might never forgive me. I froze. My stomach churned. Then don't, I muttered, trying to mask the panic with anger. But the truth gnawed at me, sharp and insistent. I couldn't let it go, not now, not ever. Mark ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting around like he was searching for an escape. I swear, I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that. But, there's more to it than you think. I clenched my fists. Then start talking. Start somewhere. Make me understand why it looks like you betrayed me. He leaned against the wall, shoulders slumping, the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying secrets too heavy for your own back. I didn't plan for this to happen, he said finally. Emily, she reached out to me first. She needed someone to talk to, just someone to listen. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But the memory of the park, her head on his shoulder, replayed relentlessly. Handle it. I spat. That looks like a lot more than handling it, Mark. That looks like betrayal. He shook his head vehemently. No, not betrayal. Not like you think. She's going through something, her past, family stuff, and she was scared. I promised I'd be there as a friend. That's it. I swear. Everything you're imagining, it's not what's happening. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand proof, or a lie, or anything that would end the uncertainty. But instead, I felt the tension coil inside me like a spring ready to snap. Every laugh, every message, every late-night disappearance, now it carried weight I couldn't ignore. Mark stepped closer. Jason. I would never risk our friendship, not after everything we've been through. I can't force you to trust me, but I need you to know, you're the one I care about. Always have been. The words hit me like a thunderclap. Confusing, frustrating, almost unbearable. Could it really be nothing more than loyalty? Or was there something I still wasn't seeing? And in that moment, the line between betrayal and protection blurred so completely that I couldn't tell which side of it I was standing on.